All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, we got to understand that police brutality, corruption, it's not just an American problem. I know when Donald Trump won the election, a lot of people said, I'm going to Canada. Like they don't have the same problems up there. Up in Montreal, a 58-year-old mentally ill brother, Pierre Coriolan, is a French name. We got English names, they got French. But he was shot and killed by Montreal police in the hallway right outside of his apartment. Now let's see what happened with this brother that led him to get shot by Montreal police.
Allez-y, allez-y. Attention, attention. Un homme possiblement de charbal, de chaque formation encore. Le prix dans l'autre point de c'est bon. Il y a un nom. Et l'autre couteau. Tu fais ton avis, c'est bien? Moi, je confirme les tirs. Ça va, les tirs? Ça va, ça, les correct? C'est bon. Les gars, si vous avez besoin de courant, vous demandez. Ouais, il y a tout en vrai, c'est dans le trou. C'est bon, il est là. Donc, il est à la tête? Il est blessé. Il est à la tête. Courant. Non, mais vous allez. C'est bon. OK. Maintenant, 85, ça va pas aller minutes supplémentaires ici. On va geler la place. Madame, je vous appelle. Es-tu né, Gérard? Non, je m'en ai vu. Continue de pomper. Peu chaud. Voilà. Non, on ne devrait pas. Parfait. Vous et toi, monsieur, je vais t'appeler.
Now, even though these cops are in another country, speaking another language, they seem to have the same tactics, the same training, and the same fear of black men as the cops do here. It seems to be pretty universal. Now, the police say they were responding to a call from his neighbors about Pierre yelling and throwing things in his apartment. The police said in a statement they got the call around 7 o'clock. This video starts recording at 7:30. Now, I don't know how fast the police responded or what went on before this video came on, but that seemed like a pretty short time for them to receive a call, for a situation to be escalated that much, for them to have to murder this man. But the police didn't realize one of his neighbors did start to record.
The family made the video public today, and a warning, the images are graphic. And Natasha Fata joins me now with more. So Natasha, what do we know?
Well, let's begin by taking a look at the picture of the man that we're talking about, the man who lost his life in June of last year. This is an image shared by Huffington Post, and Pierre Coriolan had mental health issues. The family has acknowledged that. The people who are advocating on his behalf or their behalf have acknowledged that. What we know now, thanks to the cell phone footage that has been made public today at that press conference, is that there were a number of police officers, 5 police officers in a narrow hallway, and this 58-year-old man who loses his life is on his knees. We know that they used a series of weapons in this interaction, which became incredibly violent. They used plastic bullets, they used an electric stun gun, they used their revolvers, they also used their batons. He's lying on the ground, and they continue to hit him, or at least the area around him. It's not perfectly clear. Their altercation is taking place completely in French, but there are moments where you can get a bit of clarity. You can hear at least one officer saying to another one, "Do you have the other shot?" And then he says, "Take the shot." And then you hear the shots being fired, and these are the moments before the daughter loses her father. It's caused a lot of waves in Montreal, and now we can see those moments ourselves. We're going to share them with you now. Again, a warning, what you're about to see might be disturbing. Every time you look at it, it's very hard to watch. There is a moment where one of the officers says that Coriolan had a knife. We do not see the knife, at least from that perspective. One officer says, "Is he breathing?" The other one says, "No, he's not breathing." There is no evidence in that video that anyone tries to resuscitate him in any way. He is pronounced dead in hospital just a short while later. And we know that the Quebec Independent Investigations Unit the BEI, has been investigating since last summer, but the family is not satisfied. And particularly now with the cell phone footage coming out, they have launched a lawsuit against the local Montreal area police.
And this is also, again, raising concerns about police use of force, and that was addressed at that news conference.
It was, and there's no way around it. Once again, we're reporting on police brutality, in this instance leading to the death of a man, and once again the person who dies is a black man. So we know that Black Lives Matter had taken up this cause almost days after his death, and they had organized protests in Montreal. There really hasn't been much national coverage on this story, but there is now, again, as a result of that video, and also because of one key person who spoke out today. Will Prosper is a community activist. He's working with the family, but he's also a former RCMP officer. And he said that this didn't need to happen, that a 58-year-old man did not need to lose his life over what was essentially maybe just a presumed threat, but he didn't pose a threat if he was down on his knees. Let's have a listen to him.
There was 3 strikes against Pierre Coriolan. And the first one was he was a black man. And when you're a black man, you are more likely to be killed by police officers in Montreal. You are twice as likely to be killed. The other thing, he was poor. That's the other strike that he had. And the third strike is that he had mental health issue. And all these 3 strikes ended up causing the life of Pierre Coriolan.
He says that what we essentially watched was a firing squad kill unnecessarily a black man who was on his knees. There must have been a better way to resolve the situation, but unfortunately, that 58-year-old man lost his life.
So the police claim Pierre was armed with a knife or a screwdriver. They never really said which one. But the police say they used plastic bullets, they used their stun gun, They did everything they could, but they were still forced to use their guns to subdue him. Now you can see he was on his knees, and there were 5 cops standing over top of him with their guns drawn. But of course these cops still feared for their life, so they had to shoot him. So then one of the officers keep yelling to get on the ground. Now Pierre, who was already on his knees and they still had their guns pointed at him, told him that he physically could not get on the ground. So because he was unable to comply, one of the cops says, "Take the shot." Then you see him drop, and the cop goes over and starts checking his pockets, and his legs start twitching. That's when the cop says, "Oh, he's got a knife." So another cop jumped on him and hit him with a baton. This man was laying on the ground convulsing, with blood on his face, not breathing, and all of these police officers still felt threatened. And then they handcuff him instead of trying to help him. And as he's bleeding out, now they're calm and relaxed and want to take their time about things. The police are standing there debating whether it's a screwdriver or a knife that he had. Of course, the Montreal police couldn't say anything about it, except for a speech about how they're going to get more training for mental health issues. And all the family can really do is file lawsuits.
The CBC's Jayla Bernstein now on what the video reveals and the new questions it's raising. And again, a warning, some of the content is disturbing.
It was a struggle for Pierre Coriolan to sit through today's news conference, listening to her family's lawyer detail her uncle's death and their lawsuit against the city.
This intervention was very brutal, very violent.
The video, painful to watch, played publicly for the first time today. Pierre Coriolan was later pronounced dead in hospital. Police had used plastic bullets, a stun gun, their firearms, and a baton to subdue him. The 58-year-old had been armed with what appeared to be a knife or a screwdriver. But that's not how loved ones want their brother and uncle to be remembered. Pierre Coriolan, too emotional to speak. The city and Montreal police aren't commenting because the case is before the courts and under investigation by Quebec's police watchdog. While family members wait for those answers, activists say they already know why Coriolan is dead. Community activists are calling on the city of Montreal to change its approach to policing, hoping something can be learned from Pierre Coriolan's death.
Now, it didn't matter that somebody got this shooting on camera. The police still justify it. And we hope that they would somehow, some way punish themselves, send themselves to prison. And this isn't just in America. This is around the world. Colorism is a worldwide problem. No matter where you go. The darker your skin, the more melanin you have, the lower you are on the social ladder. The worse you're treated by society. Now we're stuck in this tribalism mindset to where we can't even stop arguing, let alone work together. Divide and conquer is the only thing holding this system together. But we're going to have to be willing to work with our people all over the world to change our situation all over the world, no matter where we are. When you have a government that'll back you, with an army that'll back you, that's the only way you'll get respect no matter where you go in the world. And when people talk about Africa, that doesn't mean you have to literally move to Africa to have a working relationship with the people over there. We have to be there to support places like Haiti. These countries have the natural resources that we need to sustain ourselves. But we are all subjected to the same system. It doesn't matter about our cultural background. It doesn't matter where we come from. It doesn't matter what we believe, our religion. We are getting exploited worldwide because we can't put aside our tribalisms. Eventually, we're going to have land where we can protect ourselves. We're going to have to practice group economics and build our infrastructure. We're going to have to create a government for ourselves. And we're going to have an army to protect whatever we build. But none of that is going to happen if we keep fighting with ourselves. Other groups have disagreements amongst themselves, but when it comes to us, they'll damn sure be on the same page. We have to learn how to do that, or else we'll continue to be exploited by everybody else and subject to other people's laws and subject to other people's punishment. We all we got. Either we do it or we don't.
Pierre Coriolan, whom I have always considered my father, died last June 27th in circumstances that particularly shocked us. We saw the video. We cannot believe that police officers treat people this way. The police gave him no chance. We therefore have a duty to denounce. This type of situation must be avoided at all costs so that it does not happen over and over and over again. We're not naive. We know that this is not the first time, that unfortunately it will not be the last time such an event happens. Yet we hope with this debate, a possible judgment will lead to much needed changes in how police intervene, particularly with vulnerable populations. We must stop killing people.
The part that is filmed, we see that the police officers use the taser gun twice, then they use the rubber bullet and their guns. We see Mr. Coriolan that is kneeling, and then they shoot again, and then he falls, and then they beat him with the baton. We have to take into account the context of the intervention in which we are talking about a black man that had mental issues. They used abusive and disproportionate force against him, and they gave him no chance.
Blessings, huh? Have a good night, boys.
What are they doing?
It's gonna be a boring night. Sorry, guys.
I was born to sleep.
Okay, Mr. Jaywalk.
I jaywalked?
And she jaywalked too. So the two of you ID card, please.
ID card because we jaywalked.
Yes, sir. It's the amount of the...
You guys are bored, eh? You're bored, eh?
No, it's my job.
It takes 1, 2, 3 officers to jaywalk?
Marcus Gordon is still upset about what happened last week.
I was just walking to my car after a group of white people had just finished walking to their car crossing the street. I walked to my car and got 2 tickets for jaywalking.
He believes he was the victim of racial profiling and says enough is enough.
I just want to live my life and never be in this situation again.
Gordon isn't alone. The Quebec Human Rights Commission has dealt with 150 cases of alleged racial profiling since 2009. Today, the commission urged the government to work towards eradicating the issue altogether.
If there's a need to fight gangs, and there might be, then it should be done without any biases.
It's the last thing he needed while preparing for a big fight. Custio Clayton says he was 5 minutes away from his home when he was pulled over by police. Before giving the officer his license and registration, Clayton asked to know why he was being stopped.
She's like, so you're resistant to giving me your paper? I'm like, no, I'm not saying I'm not going to give you a paper. I just want to know the reason why you're pulling me over before I give them to you. She's like, well, when a police officer asks you for your paper, you give them to him.
He finally complied. The officer verified Clayton's information. Then she told him to step out of his vehicle.
As soon as I get out the car, she's like, okay, well, I'm placing you under arrest. I'm like, you're placing me under arrest? She said, yeah, I'm placing you under arrest for suspicions for being a drug dealer and having drugs in the car.
Clayton says the whole thing lasted about 2 hours. No drugs were found, and he says the officer apologized.
I was hurt. I was like, shocked. It was very uncomfortable, and being inside of a police car is not comfortable at all. It's about the worst feeling you could ever have.
Clayton believes race played a role in how police treated him. Montreal police say they're looking into the incident. Now he's trying to put the event behind him and focus on his next challenge in the ring.
There are 92 recommendations, among them efforts to hire more visible minorities in government agencies, combating poverty for at-risk groups, and making anti-racism training available for public sector employees. As this anti-profiling activist says, it's about time the issue is acknowledged.
If Jean Charest doesn't mention the word racial profiling as a statement, then nothing will be done really.
The commission says most problems are with public security, and Montreal's police chief insists things will change.
We are doing training, and we want to sensibilize our police officers on the street.
The commission says it needs help from the government and legislation, but everyone can agree that attitudes and perceptions need to be changed, and that starts with education.
We're going to create a new banner. This is a Jum Doc alert. NBA superstar LeBron James is talking politics again, and this time it's R-rated. Here's his barely intelligible, not to mention ungrammatical take on President Trump in a new ESPN podcast.
The number one job in America, the point of person, is someone who doesn't understand the people and really don't give a about the people.
But wait, there's more gripping insight. ESPN host Carrie Champion asked James and fellow NBA star Kevin Durant about what she described as Trump's racist comments.
I feel like our team as a country is not ran by a great coach. It's not even a surprise when he says something. It's not even a surprise. It's like laughable. It's like
it's laughable.
It's laughable and it's scary.
But it's also scary because I shouldn't be numb to your racist comments.
Right.
I shouldn't be numb to your behavior.
I'm numb to this commentary. Like, must they run their mouths like that? Unfortunately, a lot of kids and some adults take these ignorant comments seriously. Look, there might be a cautionary lesson in LeBron for kids. This is what happens when you attempt to leave high school a year early to join the NBA. And it's always unwise to seek political advice from someone who gets paid $100 million a year to bounce a ball. Oh, and LeBron and Kevin, you're great players, but no one voted for you. Millions elected Trump to be their coach. So keep the political commentary to yourself, or as someone once said, shut up and dribble.
Amount of crimes of virtually any other
but they tend to vote Republican. They tend to be white. Most gun crimes are occurring in what's euphemistically called the inner cities, involving minorities, and they're the ones that Democrats generally are going to bend over backwards to protect, so you don't hear about mandatory prison sentences for people involved in gun crimes, say in Albany, New York, or downtown Utica.
Yeah, well, the guy, obviously there's a lot of politics in it. It's interesting that so many of these people that commit the mass murders end up being Democrats, but we don't want to. The media doesn't talk about that either.
Racist, Holocaust denier, and the Republican candidate for Congress. His name is Arthur Jones, and as CBS 2's Jim Williams reports, GOP leaders are keeping their distance.
I stand for things I deeply believe in.
Among the beliefs of Arthur Jones, GOP candidate in Illinois' 3rd Congressional District, are whites superior to blacks?
No question about it. All you have to do is look at the mess they've made of the Chicago public schools, the mess they've made of their own neighborhoods, and when they come into a white neighborhood, they destroy it.
You know that's racist. That view.
No, that's true.
He calls the Holocaust an extortion racket.
To rack up money for the Jews and to intimidate and terrorize their enemies.
Jones, former head of a Nazi group, is running unopposed in the Republican primary in a district now represented by Democrat Dan Lipinski. Top GOP leaders express outrage. Governor Bruce Rauner, there is no room for neo-Nazis in American politics. I condemn this man in the strongest possible terms. The chairman of the state Republican Party, Tim Snyder. We strongly oppose his racist views and his candidacy for any public office.
My role is as extra force, if you will.
Back in 1989, Jones provided security for former KKK leader David Duke. He got into a scuffle with CBS 2 reporter Mike Kirsch. No apologies then and today.
Mr. Jones, do you really believe with these views you can be elected to Congress?
Absolutely. Because I stand for what most white people believe in, but they're afraid to say.
We begin with some breaking news here at 6 o'clock. A Boston police officer suspended for posting a racially offensive video online. That video featured another officer who had no idea his image was being used.
I want to get right now to WBZ's Louisa Moeller, who is live at Boston Police Headquarters with the details. Louisa?
Well, Lisa, David, the commissioner just released this letter of apology from Officer Joseph D'Angelo. In it, D'Angelo calls his actions a substantial lapse in judgment. He also says his parents told him to respect people of all races and backgrounds.
Commissioner William Evans revealing Thursday a Boston police officer is off the job and unpaid for creating a racially insensitive video.
He will undergo significant sensitivity and unconscious bias retraining.
Officer Joseph D'Angelo, a 4.5-year member of the force who patrols the Roxbury area, admitted to crafting this crude video depicting another officer with the tagline, "This summer, black people have met their match." Boston police became aware of the video on June 8th and initially suspended the officer seen in the video. They learned he was unaware his image was used. He's now back on the job. Then Evans says D'Angelo came forward and owned up to making the video meant to spoof his buddy and fellow officer. The department consulted with members of the black community and agreed upon a punishment: 1-year suspension, 6 months off the job.
But for 2 weeks, we sought input from a lot of groups on what the appropriate punishment would be. We don't tolerate this type of behavior.
Superintendent-in-Chief William Gross says his embarrassment and remorse were clear.
Not once did I ever hear from him, "I'll do anything to save my job." But what we heard from him is, "I want to show everyone I'm not a racist."
Now, this is not the outcome that everybody wanted. Boston Black Ministers United for Change released a statement this afternoon calling for the officer's firing.